Diego Cordovez.
Adam Schoenfeld.
Welcome to the Scoop, brought to you by Hotel Poker. And we had Scott Clements on last week talking a lot about his deep run in the World Series, which will be on ESPN, hopefully.
You spoiled that for me, by the way. I didn't know
you
it was
thought
going
he
to
might have made it all the way.
I thought he won it.
But he made it to the final two tables, and this is after winning 2 bracelets a couple of years ago and putting together almost $5 million in lifetime earnings. And we're going to talk about how he's refashioned his game and continues to have a lot of success in all varieties of poker. I was following along on the internet, not being there, not getting reports on every hand, and it seemed like your stack was pretty volatile in terms of going up and down over the last day or two. As
Probably
they got down
just the
from
last day.
5 tables down to 2. You were up at one point. You were one of the chip leaders, I thought, and then you were down and then recovered. So was that just the way the cards were falling, or were you just in aggressive mode?
I think they actually messed up on the chip counts, because my wife actually texted me and she thought that I was out of the tournament, like, because it showed me at one point like at very like the lowest chips, and I never was at that low. Like I got up to like 11 million, and then I never on that was day 7. And I never dipped below like 7 after that.
Oh, okay.
But it did show me as like my wife thought I was out.
Yeah,
like,
at one point it had you right at the bottom, and then you were back up. So
that never happened.
That never happened.
It's a lot more exciting if it had happened.
Yeah.
Because I was impressed, and I was thinking, this makes sense that, Scott's out to win this thing. He's had successes before. He's not looking to move up a spot or 2. So you must be playing really aggressively. At that point, when there's 3 tables left, 4 tables left, a lot of guys are really now aware of the money or trying to sneak into the November 9. So it's a great spot to exploit if you're willing to take the risk. So my assumption was that was what was going on. Maybe it was to some degree, not as much as the chips were.
It definitely was in day 8. When we got down to 27, like I went into that day saying, I think everyone is going to be wanting to make the final 9, and I am going to play very aggressively. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm just gonna try to push until I either go out or get up to the chip lead or do whatever. I mean, I'm not going to just play stupid, but I felt like I was going to. I'm not sure how many hands are going to show, but I didn't make a lot of hands in the last day. But they said I was the most active player at the table, so. That's what I kind of wanted to do. I had a good seat too.
So you had that plan and you were able to execute it. You didn't find yourself midday, the enormity of the situation changing your play at all.
No, I mean I felt like it just felt like another tournament. I've always really liked to play when it gets down to it, like whether in sports or whatever. Like it feels like that's kind of what you play for. So
you said you had a good table setup. You had Michael Mizrachi on your right. Is that part of it too?
Yeah, Michael Mizrachi on my right and William Thorson on his right. So, and there might have been one other player in there, but like having those 2 players on your right instead of your left is definitely a good spot. Like Mizrachi's probably going to flat you all the time, and then Thorson might just like pick up a 6-9 suited and just like cold 4-bet. He's so I mean he does some big plays, and so I was happy to have him also on my right. And then he went out like pretty early on that day and didn't have to worry about him as much. So
I saw an interview where you were talking about the new generation of internet players who've come along, and you said that they're very mathematical in the sense that they really base their play based on ranges and certain assumptions, and that you categorize yourself as playing a lot more by feel and by adapting to what you picked up. Now that's kind of a generalization, but is that still more or less your feeling, or now that you've gone through all this discussion, have you kind of come closer to that style?
I'm still probably playing more towards my style, but I try not to make the mistakes, especially when you get kind of shorter on chips, and like what hands you should be shoving or reshoving in different kind of spots, and when you shouldn't be folding. So I think it's more of knowing how they play also. So that's
right.
I mean, if they kind of have a set standard of the way they're going to have their hand ranges, then you can know that if you can categorize it. And I feel like I do make quick judgments of players, like, okay, well, this guy plays like an online player, and like you can just tell that he made all his money and got into the main event by grinding online. So
right.
And MTT's online.
When in the earlier days in the main event, days 1 through 5, I presume, just like everyone else, that you were probably encountering very few players that you actually knew. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so, are you relying on some of the physical stereotyping that we might do?
I think I do that all the time.
Right.
Every time, like, I'm pretty much just how they look, how they talk, and I usually use that. I mean, what kind of lingo they use. I mean,
that may be something people don't realize. They may assume that you are another of the players who rose up through the ranks of the online world, but really you started off as a live player and put in a lot of hours as a live player. The internet has not been a big part of your education, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I definitely started live, and I've always enjoyed live a lot more. So I mean, I've played my fair share online, but definitely got like most of my skill from live has been from playing live. So.
Do you consciously try to avoid speaking about strategy at the table? You're a very well-known player, and in the earlier stages of the main event, for example, some of the people who might just come out once a year might be trying to engage you in strategy talk, or do you avoid that, or do you avoid talk in general?
I don't worry about talking about it too much. Somebody trying to put like you mean like so if somebody is kind of a random and they ask me a question, I don't mind like telling them, because I think that usually they probably won't like make the right decision. But I mean, if it's like if it's kind of I usually just, if it's kind of a mediocre decision, or they say whether they should call or fold, I usually say, well, that's a tough decision. You probably can go either way. So I mean, sometimes I'll talk. I mean, just kind of depends on how friendly I am with the guy. And
in general, I don't know if this is even accurate or fair. I consider you to be you project a serious persona when you play. Is that?
I would say that I usually am pretty serious.
So yeah, you're not like yucking it up or.
No, I usually, I mean, sometimes make some, like if I'm at the Bellagio and there's a few friends, then we might make some bets and have some fun and stuff like that. But usually I'm pretty serious, especially like during the main event. It was mostly just kind of business.
But you have an intense projection, which when you're not at the table, I know you're a very friendly, amiable person, but a lot of younger players, I think, are very comfortable talking and having fun, but you project a really serious, kind of focused, almost intimidating presence. Probably just to a lot of people it is intimidating that you're just, staring straight ahead and making your moves, and you don't get upset. I mean, you're comfortable, it seems, with your chips going up and down, certainly, as opposed to looking rattled when they do go down.
Yeah.
I haven't heard you berating anyone for foreplay, for example.
I usually don't say too much, so that's probably why I haven't got any TV time, because I don't really say much, even though like there was some interesting hands.
That is kind of a surprise, because certainly you're one of the far best known players in the final 5 tables. There weren't other bracelet winners or big winners. A lot of very good players, but players who are better known among the more hardcore crowd or the online crowd. So I'm kind of surprised that you haven't gotten more television time. I don't know what goes into that. Adam, you're a media expert.
You want a serious answer?
Yeah.
They're in a tough spot because, on the one hand, if there's a guy barking, it makes for good TV, I guess, and you're not going to be barking, so they don't know when it. So. It all depends on the dynamics of what's going on around you, but certainly I would be interested in watching every hand you played and think that would be very good TV. It's a balance between how much poker and how much other they want to show.
I need to suck out on like barkers more, so like, they win the hand or I win the hand versus them, then maybe.
Or be involved in some sort of controversy with the clock or along those lines.
Usually
or
pretty quick
with
acting too.
The antes.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And Scott Clements has a lot to talk about. Usually we're talking about people's past glories, but in his case, just this year at the main event, he had a deep run. So we're going to bring him back for part 3 next week, and join us then.